You know, it was Albert Essien who said, blind belief in authority is the enemy of truth. I hope I got that right. And I am making this video as part of my inner work series, and the essence of this channel is all about doing inner work. And we focus so much on doing external labor, but everything we seek to desire in life comes from within us, right? And so this page is dedicated to doing work on ourselves and also paying attention to ourselves the same way we pay attention, or if not better than we pay attention to the world outside of us. I started thinking about this quote with from Albert Essien, where he said blind belief in authority is the enemy of truth. And I think I quite agree with it, and it perfectly illustrates the discussion I'm trying to communicate and bring forward in this video. So as part of my inner work journey, I've been asking myself a lot of questions, right, about the belief systems that I hold, my values, and trying to sift or differentiate from the wheat and the chaff what actually are the beliefs that I hold dear. And one of the things I've had to confront is the issue of marriage. Now, for your information, I am a 36-year-old woman. I live in Nigeria, and I am Nigerian. Yes, I'm so sorry about that. And of course, at this age, many people, your parents and loved ones, approach you with discussions around marriage, and it got me reflecting, right? At 36, I'm unmarried, but there was a time in the past where I really thought I wanted to get married. I really did think I wanted to get married. And to tie it to the quote from Albert Einstein, right? The fact that blind belief in authority is the enemy of truth. I realized that growing up, especially as a Nigerian, you get the messaging that you as a lady, you are supposed to get married. And this is not unusual. Most ladies of African origin, or globally, most ladies get that communication one way or the other, that you are supposed to get married. And like most of us who grew up in religious households where you had to obey your parents, go to church and whatnot, you weren't really taught to question authority, right? And one thing that I'm beginning to think about currently is the fact that I think it was even a privilege that we got to go to school, because based on the messaging, based on the communication and how women are seen in society today, it was really a privilege that I went to school. Now, I say all of that to say that at the end of my university, right, when I finished my university, I realized that, oh my God, what am I going to do next? And I aligned myself with that thinking of you are supposed to get married. And I remember thinking and panicking that, oh my God, nobody has come to marry me. Now, looking back now, I realized that it was one of three things, if not all of three things. And the first is my parents' expectation, right? Once you finish university, at least in Nigeria, you are expected to maybe go for service. Better still, if you can get a husband even before you go for service, just so that everybody is sure that you are okay and that you settled down, right? And so I began to, at that age, I began to see the sense in all of that, right? At least get married, and so that you know that you are okay. And I started to desire marriage. I wanted to get married because it felt like that's the only other thing to do with myself, which leads me to my second point. The second reason why, upon reflection, I feel that many young ladies raised in Africa go ahead with this narrative that marriage is important. And yes, marriage is important, but the context in which marriage is being pursued matters a lot. Now, the second reason is that I had no clear purpose, right? Now, from primary school to secondary school, your parents are in charge of your life. By the time you finish university, you get a stark realization that you are in charge of your life now and you have to make decisions for yourself. And so I think the second reason why I aligned with the marriage narrative and started desiring marriage was because I had no clear purpose for myself, right? I wasn't quite sure what to do next. Within the context and the economy of Nigeria, getting a job is difficult, especially if you don't have parents that help you with the connections that you need. And one other factor that I feel it's a huge save is the NYSC. That's the youth corps program that many youth who just graduated university have the opportunity to do. And even though I had that opportunity to do the NYSC, right, between finishing 400 level university, NYSC, and what is the next stage, because I couldn't figure out NYSC next stage, the next best thing I could think about was aligning with the message and the thinking that the next thing you're supposed to do is get married. And so I started desiring marriage a lot. Now, desiring that marriage led me to relationships that if I had my own purpose, I wouldn't have stepped into or gotten involved in. But because there was no clear purpose for me to pursue, no clear self-direction, and then you are now an independent person, I just decided to, whether consciously or unconsciously, go ahead with the normal narrative and the societal expectation that you should get married. And I so started to desire marriage. And yes, I collected a lot of heartbreaks because I feel it's a universe trying to protect me. Now, upon reflection, I see that it's a universe trying to protect me. But I also see that I contributed to my own misery by not having the capacity to think for myself at that point in time and have the skills and the practice to, direct my own life at that point in time. Now, I say all of this to say that as an individual, it's very important for us to develop our own unique thoughts. You need to be able to think about every idea that is presented to you and determine what is the best step for you. Not only determining that, you need to collect sufficient information. Part of my inner work journey is realizing that because we were brought up in religious households, we were protected from certain information that would have collectively added up to improving the quality of our lives as individuals and also improving our self-trust and making us see the world in a bigger and better place and making us feel that we had options, right? And so self-thinking, being able to think and question authority is a very important skill that everyone needs to have and start cultivating and using. Now, to tie it back to the quote I started this video with by Albert Essien, which says that blind authority is the enemy of blind belief, or blind obedience to authority is the enemy of truth, right? Because society tells you that you should get married, you should do a certain job, you should dress a certain way, you should think a certain way. The way believing and acknowledging or accepting all of those authority statements without space for you to think about yourself and what you truly desire removes you from living your truth. And that is another reason I am realizing why many adults are living very unfulfilled, unaligned life. Because everyone is following the societal script. Meanwhile, everybody has their own individual truth that we have not been allowed to explore and realize. Now, a third reason why I, upon reflection personally, on the area of marriage, why I feel that I may have, accepted those teachings or those messaging that the next best thing to do was to get married, is because I did not want to take up the position of leading myself. Now, let me explain. From my father's house, right, my parents are responsible for you. They make decisions for you, they provide money for you and things like that. And so, because as an individual, I had not practiced self-leadership, practiced, determining what my truth is for myself, it felt like the next best thing to do was to just go and get married as a woman, which would transfer my responsibility and the task of, directing my life to the man. That means from my father to the man, and deliver me or save me from doing the grunt work of taking responsibility for my life. And so this breeds helplessness and people living in a reality that is not their own truth. I did not want to take that responsibility. I don't want to say I did not want to take that responsibility. It felt overwhelming to the extent that I couldn't figure it out. So I was comfortable being handed over to somebody else that will take up that responsibility for me. And this is why it's important to think for yourself, right? Because I was overwhelmed by what should be my next step, I went through the easiest route of, I'm no longer my dad's responsibility. Let me look for a man, or maybe a man, praying to God so that a man will come and marry me so that I don't have to figure anything out for myself. Now, I want to tie all of this, not living in your truth and doing the hard work of critically thinking of what your life actually desires and what you actually want, to all the cases of misaligned living and, bad relationships that people find themselves in. Now, because I didn't want to do the work of figuring life out for myself at that point in time, I was comfortable going into a marriage because it felt overwhelming. Where do I start from? Where do I figure things out from? I was comfortable going into a marriage at that young age. I think I finished school at about 22 or 23. Yeah, 22. Yeah, I finished university at 22 years old. At that age, I was comfortable just being handed over or accepting rather, any man that wanted to marry me, just because I had not built the capacity to take care of myself. And so the easier thing to do was to fall in line with societal, pathway of finish school and go and get married, even though I did not know the person I was going to be marrying or getting married to. And there is no doubt in my mind, as a 36-year-old sitting down here right now, that all of those relationships, all of those marriages would not have ended in a bad state, or I would have, had a miserable life. Because now that I've been able to do the grunt work of figuring things out for myself, I realized that I actually didn't even want marriage. I realized that, all those things that society was saying, finish school and get married, that's the way to go. It's actually not the only way. There are many other ways. And so we need to be able to start thinking for ourselves. Yes, there is a setup. Yes, there is a framework that society has set and kept in place for people to follow. Go to elementary school, go to secondary school, go to university, find a job, get married. But what if your truth is different from that pattern? What if your truth is learn an art form, learn a skill, draw, do something? And because all of us have been conditioned to follow this pathway, many of us are living lives that are deeply misaligned with who we truly are. And no matter what we do to find joy and satisfaction in this life, it never comes true for us. So I call on everyone watching this video for us to start taking control of our lives through thoughts, through critical thoughts. It's hard work. Like I gave you the example from my life because I didn't want to do the hard work of leading myself, of figuring things out. I was comfortable to be married off to someone that would do the work and I would be the person's responsibility. Don't be somebody else's responsibility, at least all the time. For areas of your life that you have power, you have autonomy and agency, take advantage of it. Make a move, take a step. And that way you'll be living a more fulfilled and aligned life. I hope this message resonates. And I hope that from this message, from this video, you can see why it's important for you to choose your own life deliberately. Not follow patterns, not follow setups and frameworks and systems that every other person has set up for you to live and lead your life by. And I'll close with this quote. Obeying others just to obey is the mark of a person who has ceased to think. Keep that at the back of your mind and learn to question the things that are being presented to you. Don't swallow things hook, line and sinker, especially in this time and in this society where there is a lot of information out there feeded into your timeline, feeded into your For You page, whether you ask for it or not. Before you absorb anything, before you accept a belief system, sit down and think about it. I'll see you in my next one. Bye-bye.